Hello tacticians, it's Nox here, and today we're going to be talking about the latest addition to Tacticus, Baraqiel, the Deathwing Terminator. But before I go into that, I just want to say my thank yous, and today they go to Rainbow Lizard, Ikester1335, Rydar, Torpraven, and Joe Plum. All of you have used my friend code, and it is very much appreciated, as it really does help me out. So, thank you once again. So, obviously, he is a member of the Dark Angels, and unsurprisingly, as a Terminator, he has Deep Strike, which means he'll turn up anywhere he wants on the battlefield, which is one way to get around his rather meagre movement of 2, but that seems to be standards for Terminators. He also has Crushing Strike, which means he'll do an additional 50% more damage with normal melee attacks, as long as he hasn't moved. This is actually going to make him quite a powerhouse in melee, and unsurprisingly, his plasma cannon there is a heavy weapon. Finally, as we touched upon earlier, he is wearing Terminator armour. So, pretty much what you see is what you get with this character. And before we get into his skills, I just want to announce the winners from my Scrolls giveaway. The winner of the 10 Scrolls is Zephyrot94, and for the 5 Scrolls, we've got Bibu Cordoba 2969 and Nathan Carson 3644. I will have liked all of your comments and also commented on them, so please get in touch with the email provided and I will be able to give you the codes to enter. And congratulations, I hope you get something nice. And now, on to his skills. Here we have all the stats for Baraqiel at various breakpoints throughout the game. And if we look at his active ability, the Plasma Cannon, you can see that it deals 3 lots of plasma damage to an enemy within 3 hexes and up to 2 enemy units behind the target. This ability can be used multiple times per battle, but has a cooldown of 1 round, and it can't be used in the first turn. So unfortunately, that means we're not going to teleport in and be able to shoot someone straight away. And that damage for the plasma, unsurprisingly, increases depending on the level you get to. And because it's his main way of doing range damage, you will definitely want to level up that active ability as much as you can. His passive is Deathwing, and each time Baraqiel blocks damage during an attack, all further incoming damage is then reduced by a certain amount, and the damage Baraqiel deals in melee or with the plasma cannon is increased by that amount for 1 round. This effect is then doubled against Chaos enemies or when standing adjacent to another friendly Dark Angel. And whilst these amounts may not seem like much, you have to remember it's just under 10% of his existing damage, and both attacks that he has, whether it's with the Plasma Cannon or with melee, have 3 attacks. So you're probably looking somewhere like 25% increase in damage just for getting a block. And talking about blocks, this does mean that Azrael is going to be one of his best buddies because of the Lion Helm, which increases the block chance for Dark Angels, who are within 2 hexes. This guy's going to be blocking all over the place and dealing a lot of damage in return. My only concern is that movement of 2, the fact that you can't use that plasma cannon every turn, but beyond that, he looks pretty good. So let's have a look at him in action. So, as with everything, we like to start off with the initial test of what happens when you go within shooting distance of Calendis. And in Terminator armour, not much. So let's try a tougher one. One with Rayvas. Okay, so we've got our Terminator armour, and we're going to approach Rayvas to see what happens to Baraqiel. That's a lot of damage, but he did survive. So, if you really have to trigger that Overwatch, this is someone who can do it. Of course, I wouldn't do this if Rayvas was on higher ground to Baraqiel, as the end would be very messy indeed. Moving on to the Plasma Cannon, which you can use every other turn, you'll see that the amount of damage it actually does, which is 3 lots of up to 216 damage, is more or less in the same ballpark as Sarkel's. However, obviously you need to go through armour, and needing to go through armour 3 times really means that if you want to use the plasma cannon on this guy, you are going to want Sarkel around to improve that pierce ratio because of what happens with his supercharge. It gives the additional plus 20% pierce ratio. And this isn't really a character that you want to move. Both the Crushing Strike and their heavy weapon means that they do more damage as long as they have not moved. So I can see this character actually being very useful in the territory TAs where you're going to go on a point and basically sit there for the rest of the game. Because if they don't come to you, you're still going to be firing those 3 hexes every other turn. But let's see how much damage this actually does. So first of all, we'll use it on its own. Not too shabby, all things considered. And now let's have a look, see what happens when we buff it with Baraqiel. So yes, you will recognise I've altered the layout just a little bit to make the most of Baraqiel's ability, because what we're going to do, we're going to supercharge against Ray Vass, which will hit Marneus Calgar as well. As you can see, they both now have the supercharge effect, which means hits that deal plasma damage against the unit have an additional 20% PS ratio. And now we can use Baraqiel's plasma cannon and see what this does. It does kill Marneus in one shot and did a little bit of damage, but we always know that Ray Vass is a tough character to beat, and Marneus was actually on a lower ground, which would have enabled that extra damage to go through. Still, quite impressive, I'm sure you'll agree. And finally, the Deathwing passive ability. What does this actually do? Well, what we'll do, we'll skip to the opponent's turn and shoot at Baraqiel. We got a couple of blocks there, and you can see the little arrow has appeared, along with a nice little graphic for the Dark Angels. So if we click on Baraqiel now, we can see the effect is the Deathwing effect. So all incoming damage is now reduced by 21 for a rare rarity, which is very good for multiple hit attacks, not so great against single hit shots like Calendus. And not only is incoming damage reduced, but his outgoing plasma cannon damage is also increased. Of course, this is if he can actually use his plasma cannon in his turn. And whilst it doesn't show the increase in the plasma cannon damage in the tooltip, you have got the Deathwing effect, upward arrow, to show you that it is actually there, along with the Crushing Strike because he's not actually moved. So we can see this guy is going to be very good for defending a point. You may also have noticed when we went through that there were multiple blocks and we only get the one effect from the Deathwing effect. So it's not going to stack, at least not that it's showing on the test server. Whether that's a bug or not, we'll find out as soon as this character comes live. My overall thoughts about Baraqiel. He is certainly leaning into the synergy that all the Dark Angels get. Although, will this be enough to see him have a place in the Guild War and tournament arenas is yet to be seen. My gut feeling is you will see the Dark Angels as a team on defense, and you possibly use them as a team on offense as well. They play very well together as their buffs complement each other, and they'll happily receive even more buffs from other characters such as Marneus or Eldrian. But really, because they work so well together, you're probably not going to want anyone else coming in to increase that further. For new players considering this character, I would first look at how your other Dark Angels are doing, as this one really does rely upon Baraqiel from his Supercharge ability, and Azrael with his Lion Helm increasing his block chance. If you don't have these two, I wouldn't really go all in on Baraqiel at all. If you've got Asmodai, there is some synergy there, but the Exemplar of Hate will only work on Overwatch or the normal attacks, and Baraqiel's normal attack is a melee attack. And of course, he has no Overwatch. Although, when it comes to the passive of Feared Interrogator, having Baraqiel standing next to him will help Asmodai quite a bit. So if you have those other characters, by all means level this guy up. I think he will be a very good unit to have with the other Dark Angels, but not so good on his own or indeed with other characters. He really does need those other Dark Angel characters to make him stand out. If you like these videos, then it would be much appreciated if you at least think about using my friend code, as it really does help me out. Or if you or your guilds are looking for a new home, please reach out to any of the guilds shown, as we'll always welcome new people into our midst. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.